As Noha stepped through the thick curtains of vines into the true heart of the Cape Amazon jungle, a heavy silence settled around him and his two friends, Ryan and Samira, who followed closely behind, each carrying a heavy backpack filled with tools, rope, water filters, portable lanterns, flares, and Noha's old handwritten jungle notes pressed between plastic sheets. The forest ahead was a massive green world rising over them like a living giant, rays of sunlight barely breaking through the dense canopy and scattering across the mossy ground as they walked deeper in, trying to adjust to the wild humidity mixed with earthy scents, distant animal cries, and the echo of unseen insects. The trio stopped occasionally, absorbing the overwhelming view. The jungle stretched endlessly, full of layered branches, enormous tree roots twisting like ancient serpents, waterfalls murmuring in the distance, and fog drifting lazily in the air as though the forest breathed with them. Ryan whispered in disbelief, "Bro, this looks exactly like your book," and Noha smiled softly, his heart thudding with a strange mixture of excitement and déjà vu as he opened the old notebook and showed them the first drawing, a giant canopy arch shaped like a natural doorway, the same one they were standing under now. Samira touched the bark of a massive tree, feeling the moisture, and said, "I can't believe this exists, it's all real." And for a moment the three stood silently, overwhelmed by the beauty and mystery around them. Then they walked further until the sound of rustling leaves warned them of something approaching. Out of the bushes leaped a small capybara, frightened but harmless, its shiny brown fur shimmering, and Samira laughed, whispering, "It's cute," while Noha gently motioned for them to stay calm so the animal could pass peacefully. The deeper they went, the more surreal everything became. Giant butterflies the size of their palms fluttered between the leaves, trees bearing glowing fungi pulses illuminated dim corners, and vines thick enough to climb stretched so high they vanished into the canopy. The group kept walking, carefully marking trees with chalk so they wouldn't lose their way, and soon they reached a cliff point from where the entire jungle could be seen like an endless green ocean, mountains wrapped in mist, rivers carving silver paths, tree crowns moving gently like waves. Noha took a deep breath and whispered, "We've officially entered the real Amazon," and his friends nodded silently, both emotional and terrified. They set a temporary rest area under a large fallen log, drank water, and studied the map, deciding the safest path. Noha guided them with confidence, telling stories of his first survival, how he nearly died, how he escaped storms, wild animals, hunger, and loneliness. Ryan and Samira listened seriously, realizing the journey ahead was much bigger than a simple exploration. After resting, they resumed walking, recording videos, taking pictures, documenting strange plants, some with neon blue petals that closed when touched, others with weird patterns like fingerprints on leaves. As the sun began to set, the jungle's colors shifted dramatically. Deep golden rays filtered through trees, birds returned to nests, and the air filled with soft humming. They reached a small clearing where Noha decided they would camp later, but for now they simply observed the place and its animal prints, jaguars, snakes, monkeys. "We're not alone here," Noha murmured, checking the ground carefully. The first day inside the Cape jungle didn't bring immediate danger but something far more powerful, an indescribable sense of mystery, as though the forest was quietly watching their every move. As night approached, the trio stood silently looking at the glowing horizon through the trees, realizing their new chapter had officially begun. And deeper inside the jungle awaited secrets, strange creatures, ancient paths, and maybe answers Noha had been searching for since the first time he crashed into this place. With lanterns lit and determination strong, they took their final steps of the day toward the clearing, ready to build their first camp and face whatever the Amazon planned for them tomorrow. The deeper Noha and her two friends, Arib and Zohan, moved into the cave jungle. The atmosphere changed from bright curiosity to an intense but thrilling sense of discovery, as if every leaf whispered secrets only they were meant to hear. The thick canopy above filtered the sunlight into soft green rays that danced on the moss-covered ground, and the trio followed a narrow, winding trail Noha had found sketched in her guidebook, matching every detail with creeping excitement because the book's rough drawings of twisted vines, unusually shaped ferns, and old stone markers looked exactly like what spread out before them, making Arib laugh in disbelief and Zohan mutter Pagel ho gay tai hum jab tuje trust kia, or dek, tu sohinically. They stopped several times to examine strange species of plants, some glowing faintly, others shaped like tiny cups collecting dew, one even closing slowly when Noha touched it, and each discovery made them feel like explorers who had somehow stepped into a forgotten world untouched by time, while small animals peeked at them from branches, including a silver-furred monkey with bright amber eyes that followed them for a few minutes as if trying to decide whether to trust them, and a large blue bird with a crown of feathers that screeched loudly before flying away. The sounds around them were unlike any jungle they had heard in videos, deep echoing calls, rhythmic chirping, the distant rumble of a waterfall. They blended together like a living orchestra guiding their path. As they walked further, they reached a place where the trees widened, forming a natural chamber with a massive trunk in the center, its bark engraved with old tribal markings partially covered by green moss, and Noha quickly matched it with a page in her guidebook labeled the Heart Tree, which explained that ancient explorers believed this tree marked a safe zone free from predators, though the book also warned that the jungle beyond it was unpredictable. For a moment, the friends sat down to rest, eating snacks they had packed earlier, energy bars, biscuits, and a bottle of flavored water, while Arib joked about how this was the weirdest picnic of his life and Zohan tried to sketch the glowing mushrooms growing at the edge of the clearing. But their peaceful break was interrupted when a deep vibration suddenly passed through the ground, so subtle that at first they thought it was their imagination until leaves above them rustled in a synchronized wave as if something massive had moved somewhere far away. They all exchanged nervous looks, but Noha, steadying herself, reminded them softly that jungles like these had ecosystems far more active and alive than city forests, and sounds travel differently through dense terrain. So they picked up their bags and continued deeper, eventually reaching an area where the sunlight dimmed and cool mist drifted around their ankles, creating a mysterious yet calming ambience. And here they saw something that instantly made them freeze, a herd of small deer-like animals, except their skin shimmered with a metallic rose-gold sheen and their antlers curved into spirals glowing faintly blue, and although Arib whispered "Yer sak main exist car sakta high," Noha lifted her book again and found a sketch of the same creatures called luma deer, described as harmless, gentle, and extremely alert. When one of the creatures stepped closer, sniffing Noha's backpack curiously, she slowly reached out and placed a small berry from her food pouch on her palm, and to her amazement the creature leaned forward and gently nibbled it before retreating into the group, making her friend stare at her like she had performed some kind of magic. And even Noha felt a sudden rush of emotion, wonder, fear, pride all mixed together, as if the jungle had accepted them. After this rare encounter, they continued forward and found a stream of crystal-clear water flowing over smooth rocks, so cold and pure-looking that they filled their bottles while sitting along its edge, dipping their tired feet in the refreshing current and letting the coolness soothe the fatigue of hours of walking. And as the day began sliding toward evening, the light in the jungle shifted from gold to soft amber, creating long shadows that danced with the breeze, which pushed them to find a safe place to set up a temporary spot for resting, because staying still too long after sunset wasn't wise. Eventually they reached a small elevated patch surrounded by thick trees and natural stone walls like a protective bowl, and they decided this would be their stop for the evening, with Noha pulling out her small portable torch and Arib gathering dry leaves and sticks to prepare for a campfire while Zohan cleared the ground of sharp stones. And once everything was set, they sat around a tiny fire that crackled gently, casting warm orange light over their faces while insects hummed softly in the darkness. That night, with the sky barely visible through the leaves and stars flickering faintly behind the canopy, the three friends had their first quiet moment to breathe, laugh, and reflect, talking about their favorite moments of the day, teasing each other about who got scared the most, and wondering what new wonders the deeper part of the jungle would reveal next. And although they were tired, a strange peacefulness settled over them, the kind that only comes from stepping into the unknown and realizing that the world is much bigger, stranger, and more beautiful than they ever imagined. and as the fire crackled, and soft jungle sounds echoed around them, the adventure of tomorrow felt even more exciting. Noha, Daniel, and Sophia pushed deeper into the cave jungle as the morning sun slowly climbed behind the thick canopy, turning the entire forest into a glowing cathedral of green light where every leaf shimmered like polished glass, and the humid air carried the scent of wet soil and wildflowers. The three explorers walked slowly, their senses heightened, because every new corner of this strange world revealed something unbelievable. The deeper they went, the more unusual things they observed: clusters of blue, coin-shaped fungi growing on the trunks, releasing faint smoke whenever someone stepped too close, vines that curled away from human touch as if alive, trees thick as walls, covered in ancient engraved symbols that looked half tribal and half mystical. Sophia kept taking pictures, whispering this place shouldn't exist, while Daniel used a small field recorder to capture every sound echoing through the jungle, from high-pitched bird calls to the strange, rhythmic beating that felt like something massive tapping through the roots beneath their feet. Noha moved ahead carefully, carrying his old leather book close to his chest, comparing every strange plant and creature they saw with the sketches he had made during his first terrifying journey, except this time he wasn't alone, and that gave him a strange sense of confidence. Suddenly they entered a clearing where the sunlight broke through in sharp golden lines, revealing a surreal sight: a family of small cat-like animals with luminous green stripes drinking from a shallow pool. Their fur reflected light like metallic silk, and their large eyes watched the explorers with curiosity instead of fear. Daniel slowly reached into his bag and tossed a small piece of dried fruit toward them. Instead of running away, the creatures chirped joyfully, almost like small children, and one stepped close enough to sniff Sophia's shoe before darting back to the group, creating a moment that felt unreal yet deeply peaceful. As they continued further, the jungle began to thicken again, the roots twisted like giant serpents, the vines hung low and thick, forming natural archways, and the air filled with the sound of dripping water and distant roars. A heavy silence suddenly fell when the trio reached an enormous fallen tree covered entirely in glowing purple moss. The tree looked burned at its core, as if something powerful had hit it long ago. Noha kneeled, touching the bark with cautious fingers as a strange warmth pulsed beneath it, almost like the entire tree was breathing. Before they could investigate further, a tremor rippled beneath their feet, not violent but long and steady, like something massive walking somewhere deeper in the forest. They exchanged tense glances, and Sophia whispered, "This isn't normal, something big lives here." Noha nodded, but his voice remained calm as he said, "That's why we're here, to find what others never dared to." The trembling faded, replaced by the eerie call of some unseen bird high above, its cry echoing like a flute through the valley. They continued walking, their excitement mixing with fear, and soon the forest opened into a breathtaking valley of enormous neon blue flowers taller than a human, each petal glowing softly under the sunlight like stained glass. Butterflies with transparent wings floated around the flowers, leaving glowing trails in the air, while small red lizards ran between roots with surprising speed. Sophia's heart raced with joy as she whispered, "I can't believe this is real. This is like discovering another world." Noha agreed silently. Everything here matched his first journey, yet somehow it felt even more vivid, more alive, as if the jungle itself recognized his return. They decided to rest near a large rock formation shaped like a half-open shell. Daniel unpacked water bottles and snacks, while Sophia sketched the glowing flowers in her journal. Noha sat against a tree, listening to the strange chorus of forest sounds, soft buzzing, distant rumbling, and whispers of wind that barely reached the ground. For a moment, everything felt peaceful, until a sudden rustling burst from a bush behind them, and three enormous bird-like creatures stepped out, each with long feathered necks, dark emerald feathers, and eyes that shimmered gold in the sunlight. Though imposing in size, their expressions were non-aggressive, almost inquisitive. Daniel froze, whispering, "Don't move, maybe they're just watching." Noha slowly extended his hand, showing he had no weapons, and the largest bird tilted its head, letting out a low, harmonic hum that vibrated through the ground. It was not a warning, it was communication. The creature lowered its head gently, allowing Noha to touch one of its feathers, which felt warm and soft like velvet. Sophia gasped in amazement while Daniel captured the moment on camera. After a few peaceful seconds, the birds turned and walked back into the forest, disappearing between the giant blue flowers as quietly as they had arrived. The three friends sat in stunned silence, overwhelmed by the beauty and strangeness of what they had just experienced. As the sunlight began to fade and shadows lengthened across the valley, Noha stood and said, "We're only at the beginning, deeper inside, there are things even I never saw." And with renewed determination and a mix of fear and excitement, they picked up their bags, tightened their gear straps, and stepped toward the darker regions of the cave jungle, unaware that the most unbelievable secrets were still waiting ahead. The sun dipped low behind the towering Amazon canopy as Noha, Zara, and Cameron continued deeper into the uncharted valley, their steps slow and cautious, their breath steady but heavy with the thrill of discovery and the weight of the unknown. Each rustling leaf and shifting shadow made the forest feel alive in ways none of them had ever imagined, and as they descended along a narrow trail lined with giant fern walls, an eerie yet mesmerizing glow began to spill out from between the trees, a soft, pulsating turquoise light that shimmered like liquid air. Drawn toward it, they pushed aside thick branches until the sight hit them like a shock, an entire clearing filled with towering crystal-like plants, each one humming with a faint, almost musical vibration, as if the jungle itself had a heartbeat. The three friends stared in awe, their reflections distorted across the transparent surfaces of the glowing structures, and Cameron whispered that it felt like stepping into another world. While Zara slowly approached a tall crystalline stalk with her hand outstretched, only to pull it back when the plant responded to her movement by shifting its glow from blue to green, as if acknowledging her presence, Noha, stunned but analytical, began sketching rapidly in his notebook, documenting the way the colors changed with motion, temperature, and sound, and he noted how the ground beneath the plants was dry, strange for the Amazon, and covered in a fine silver powder that drifted with every step they took. As they explored the clearing, a soft crackling noise grew louder, like electricity skimming across the surface of water, and suddenly the plants began dimming one by one, as if something was approaching. Instinctively, the trio backed away, ducking behind giant tree roots just moments before a herd of deer-like creatures entered the clearing, beautiful yet bizarre, with long delicate legs, shimmering white fur that reflected the turquoise glow, and branching antlers that emitted faint sparks of light. The creatures knelt and began licking the silver powder from the ground, causing the crystals to glow brighter again, and Noha whispered that this powder must be some kind of nutrient, a symbiotic exchange between animal and plant, something that seemed too perfectly designed to be random evolution. While watching them, Zara accidentally stepped on a dry twig, crack, and the entire herd froze, their glowing antlers flaring bright in alarm. The animals bolted into the forest in a flash of white light trails, leaving the trio stunned and breathless, and for a moment an uneasy silence washed over the clearing until the plants began flickering violently, as if warning them of something else. Then came the sound, the deep earth-shaking rumble they had felt days earlier, this time closer, heavier, like a massive body moving through thick vegetation. All three exchanged fearful glances, grabbed their backpacks, and sprinted toward the opposite side of the clearing, stumbling over vines and roots as the thundering footsteps drew nearer, the ground trembling beneath them. Just as they reached a fallen tree arching like a natural tunnel, a colossal silhouette emerged behind them, its shape unclear through the dense leaves, but its glowing amber eyes burning like bonfires in the dark. They ducked under the fallen tree and raced through a narrow ravine lit only by Zara's flickering flashlight, the creature's growls echoing behind them, until finally the sounds faded, swallowed by the thickness of the forest. Exhausted and drenched in sweat, they collapsed at the edge of a shallow stream, gasping for air, listening to the water trickle softly over smooth stones, a perfect contrast to the chaos they had escaped. Once they regained their breath, Noha dipped his hands into the cold water and noticed strange circular ripples forming even when untouched, As if the stream responded to sound vibrations, Cameron tapped a rock gently and watched as the ripples shifted into spiral patterns, glowing faintly blue just for a second, before returning to normal. The forest around them hummed with life. Tiny glowing insects danced above the stream like floating stars. Small frogs with transparent skin leapt across mossy rocks. And distant animal calls echoed through the valley, creating a chorus of strange yet beautiful sounds. Setting their fears aside, they began recording everything: videos, sketches, notes, determined to bring this knowledge back to the world. Later, when night began to crawl over the treetops and shadows stretched long across the forest floor, they found an open patch beneath massive roots that formed a natural shelter and decided to set up camp there. Cameron gathered dry wood, Zara arranged stones into a circle, and Noha used a spark tool to light a small fire, its warm glow bringing comfort in the otherwise haunting darkness. As they cooked, packed food, and shared their thoughts, the jungle transformed. Bioluminescent spores drifted like glittering snowflakes, luminous vines curled around nearby trees, and distant animal eyes blinked from the shadows, watching silently but peacefully. They talked about the glowing deer, the crystal field, the mysterious giant creature, and how each discovery proved that the Amazon still held secrets far beyond human understanding. Noha then opened his notebook and wrote a single sentence at the top of a new page: "We are not just exploring the jungle now, it feels like the jungle is revealing itself to us, piece by piece." And as the fire cracked softly and cool night air wrapped around them, they felt a strange sense of unity with the forest, as if it had accepted their presence. Sleep came slowly that night, with a distant hum of glowing plants echoing softly, and though danger lurked in the shadows, the thrill of discovery burned stronger, guiding them deeper into the heart of a world no human had ever documented before. The next morning arrived quietly, with the jungle breathing a soft mist that drifted around Noha, Aiden, and Zoya as they slowly opened their eyes, each feeling the weight of the night before still humming through their bones. The glowing lights they had encountered, the mysterious animals, the whispering leaves that had moved as if alive, all still replayed in their minds like a dream they weren't ready to let go of. Noha stretched his tired muscles and looked around, noticing how the early sunlight filtered through giant ferns and vines, casting golden beams across the forest floor like a delicate spotlight revealing details they had missed in the night. Aiden was already awake, sitting on a large fallen tree trunk, gently brushing away the thin layer of silver dust that had settled over his boots, while Zoya crouched near the small fire pit from last night, blowing lightly on the remaining embers to make them glow once more. The three of them shared quiet glances, silently acknowledging how surreal, yet unbelievably beautiful, this place was. After a quick but thoughtful breakfast of dried bread, fruit, and a few sips of the water they had purified, they resumed their journey deeper into the forest, following a path that wasn't really a path but more of a direction Noha felt in his chest, a strange pull guiding him forward. The jungle around them seemed to shift with every step, leaves changed color subtly under the sunlight, insects glowed faintly even in the daytime, and a soft wind carried scents they had never experienced before, earthy, floral, sharp, sweet, all mixed like a perfume crafted by nature itself. After an hour of walking, they reached a stunning sight, a massive tree whose roots rose out of the ground like ribcage of some ancient creature, forming tunnels and natural paths beneath it. Its bark shimmered with faint greens and purples, and small glowing insects drifted in and out as if the tree were a home to thousands of tiny living lanterns. Aiden whispered, "This looks like something right out of a fantasy movie," and Zoya nodded with wide eyes, placing her hand gently against the bark, which vibrated faintly like a slow heartbeat. Beneath the massive roots, they discovered a small pond so still and clear it reflected the canopy above like a perfect mirror. When Noha dipped his hand into it, the water responded with soft circular ripples that glowed light blue before fading. Fascinated, they sat around the pond for a while, sketching, taking notes, recording observations, and wondering how such a place could exist unnoticed by the world. But their calm exploration took a sharp turn when a deep, distant roar echoed through the forest, followed by the trembling of the ground beneath them. Instantly, all three froze, exchanging looks of warning and concern. The roar came again, closer this time, and the jungle seemed to react, animals scattering, glowing insects rising into the air like sparks from a fire. Noha motioned for them to stay low, and quickly but quietly, they crawled beneath the huge tree roots to hide, peeking through the gaps just enough to see what was approaching. A massive creature appeared, bigger than any land animal they had ever seen, its fur dark and matted, its shoulders towering above bushes, and its breath steaming heavily through the cold morning air. What terrified them most were its eyes, huge, golden, and tracking the ground as if searching for something specific. It moved slowly, sniffing, pushing aside bushes effortlessly with its enormous limbs, and when it passed dangerously close to their hiding spot, Aiden held his breath so tightly Noha feared he might faint. But just as the creature stopped and turned its head slightly in their direction, a high-pitched screech sounded from deeper in the jungle, drawing its attention. With a heavy stomp, it turned and slowly walked away, leaving the ground shaking lightly with each step until its shadow disappeared behind a curtain of vines. The three stayed silent for nearly a full minute, hearts pounding, before finally crawling out from under the roots, each trembling with adrenaline, yet also filled with a strange excitement. "Now I understand why you survived the first time," Aiden told Noha quietly. "This place is insane, but magical." Zoya nodded, still catching her breath, and added, "We're not just visiting a jungle, we're walking through another world." They spent the rest of the day exploring extremely cautiously, marking trees with chalk so they could find their way back, recording every unusual creature sound, every glowing plant, every strange movement in the leaves. By late afternoon, they found a small hill with a flat top that overlooked a vast stretch of jungle, and they decided to build their second night's campsite there, giving them a safer vantage point. They gathered dry wood, set up their torches, and prepared a small but warm fire. Aiden cooked improvised jungle tea by boiling leaves in water. Zoya arranged their supplies neatly, and Noha carved a few wooden markers to track their journey. As night settled, slowly at first, then fully enveloping the jungle, the glowing plants began to illuminate once more, and the forest transformed into a mesmerizing scenery of shining blues, greens, and golds. Sitting around their fire, they felt peaceful for the first time since entering the deep jungle. Zoya talked about her fear and excitement. Aiden joked about how he would definitely write a book after this, and Noha, staring into the glowing forest, felt a strange warmth in his heart, the same feeling he had felt years ago, the feeling that this jungle was not an enemy, but a mystery waiting to be understood. In that quiet moment, with the fire crackling and the glowing forest breathing slowly around them, Noha realized something deeper. This journey wasn't just exploration, it was the beginning of a discovery that could change their lives forever.